Welcome to another episode of Corporate CPR, where we breathe life back into your organization, projects, and processes, giving you insights to recovery and avoiding corporate mortality events. Today, we'll be talking about not losing ground by not staying on top of AI, and joining us to contribute to the conversation is Peter Voss. Welcome, Peter. So glad to have you.
Great. Well, thanks for having me.
Can you share a little bit about your background?
Yes, certainly. I started out as an electronics engineer and started my own electronics company, and then I fell in love with software. So my company turned into a software company, and I developed a ERP software system for medium-sized business, and that company was quite successful. We went from the garage to 400 people and did an IPO. So that was awesome. So I survived that one with lots of ups and downs. But it's when I exited that company that I really said, well, what big problem do I want to tackle? And what really struck me is that software really needs to be more intelligent. That, when you write software, if you don't think of all the different situations, then it'll just give an error message or crash or not do something unintelligent. So how can we bring intelligence into software? And that's really what I've been busy with for the last 20 plus years, is to build to figure out how to make software more intelligent. And of course, that's a very big topic these days, especially with ChatGPT and so on. But AI has been developing for decades, and I think we're seeing an acceleration of that. But ultimately, what we're looking for is what people refer to as artificial general intelligence, which is the sort of broad general intelligence that we as humans have, that we can learn many different things. We are very good tool users. We can get a new tool like ChatGPT or new program, and we can become, we can learn how to use it and extend our capabilities. So that's really what I've been busy with. And specifically, I've been alternating between R&D, developing more intelligent systems, and then commercializing them. So, I basically try to do both and balance out the time of concrete practical applications in commerce and industry, and on the other hand, continuing to move the technology forward.
Yeah, well, that sounds like it'll be an exciting conversation. So, I'd love to start actually a little bit in the, I guess, chat bot function, and then move to more general AI, because I know you do a lot within the conversational AI, and so would love to hear about how that landscape is changing, because we've all had been on a website and it says, how can I help you? And it can be incredibly frustrating because it doesn't understand what you're really after. So can you talk to me about some of the advances there?
Yes, absolutely. So yes, I know we've all had these frustrations. You call into a company and the system really doesn't understand you, and all that people want to do is just press 0 to get to an operator, or a chatbot, and you just because basically a lot of these systems, most systems, just don't have a lot of intelligence, and they're really using technology that's been around for like 30 years. It's essentially a flowchart, where somebody draws up a flowchart and say, I'll ask you this question, and depending on whether you say one yes or no, or depending on the answer you give, then you do this or you do that. But there's really no understanding, no memory, no context. And this is what we've been working on, and our technology is different in that it's a chatbot with a brain, so that you actually have deeper understanding, you have memory, you use context, and you can reason about what's going on. So that is a much more capable conversation. But unfortunately, companies have been very slow at adopting this kind of technology. There's just a lot of inertia, and that's the way we've always done it. And it's actually quite frustrating that companies that ostensibly pride themselves in providing good customer service will still provide such awful chatbots and automation.
One of the challenges that I know, or at least as of maybe 2 years ago, that chatbots had a challenge with is obviously, I think the statistic is our words make up 77% of communication,
Mhm.
and another big element of communication is tone. And so oftentimes these chatbots don't understand sarcasm. They don't understand, they can't
Mhm.
always read the like frustration.
Mhm.
Have we made any advances in that kind of language, understanding language?
Yes, certainly that is part of. I think what the new large language models like ChatGPT and just generally the advances in AI do make it possible to actually detect that kind of emotional tone. But typically, that's actually not the biggest frustration that people have. The biggest frustration that people have is that the systems just really aren't engineered to help people. They don't have access to the right information, or they're just not well designed. But certainly the sort of tone of voice, of course, in chat you don't really have the voice part of it, but still certainly can help help smooth the conversation along. But really the biggest frustration is that they simply don't understand basic things and aren't capable of helping you. That's really what people want, is to get stuff done.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's talk about AI a little more generally. Obviously, it's a very big, broad category, and there can be. It really feels like the possibilities are endless at the moment.
Mhm.
And so, how does an organization even approach the concept of AI and how it might help them as an organization?
Yeah, it's actually very difficult. As you say, the term AI encompasses a huge amount of different technologies. So, for example, you have categorization like number crunching, and where you can go through ads and categorize them, or responses that customers have and categorize them and get statistics from that. There's image recognition and the technology used in self-driving cars. So there's just a lot of different technology. And then the other problem, so it depends on, what problem you're trying to solve. And then the other big problem, though, is that there's just an enormous amount of hype. And we're just in this sort of very big hype cycle with, ChatGPT and related products that are just very, very impressive in terms of what they can do, the kind of conversation you can have with them, or you can ask them to write a poem or to write I don't know, political speech in the style of Shakespeare, or whatever. And they actually do amazingly well. The problem is when you try to apply this to commercial applications where your legal team needs to be signed off on it, and say, does this actually meet our legal requirements? Are we going to be exposed by putting this out to customers and using it? Your marketing team has to sign off on it, your customer experience team. And the problem with these GPT systems, actually the word GPT means generative pre-trained transformer. So generative means actually that they make up stuff. So and this is where you get this hallucination, and where you get them just can just give really false information. I mean, for example, you could ask ChatGPT about some article that you wrote about nuclear physics, and it would come back and quote you having written an article on nuclear physics, which you probably haven't done, complete with quotations, or that I haven't written either. So that's a problem. GPT, generative, it makes up stuff. So you have to then try and put guardrails around that, but that's actually not that easy and not that secure. And the fact that they're pre-trained, so the P in GPT, means that really the knowledge they acquired was a massive project that probably cost $100 million or something, with massive and massive amounts of data, really all the data they could get their hands on, from Twitter and Wikipedia and so on. And the quality of that data is all over the place,
Yeah.
So so the quality of the data is a problem, and that's why it can also make up things that are just plain wrong or obnoxious. But the core technology doesn't really lend itself to learning on an ongoing basis or to learn on the fly. They're kind of tricks around that to try and mitigate that, but fundamentally the technology cannot really learn and integrate that knowledge. So these are huge limitations if you want to implement this in a company. Now, the problem is there is so much money being thrown at this that you have consulting firms and companies springing up left, right, and center that have just had billions of dollars thrown at them. And they're obviously trying to convince, companies that you need this, you really need this, otherwise you're going to be behind, and your competitors are going to overtake you. But a lot of the projects that people are talking about are really not practical or feasible with this technology. So to really figure out how to use the technology effectively, what you can use it for and what you can't use it for, is really very tricky with the amount of hype and the amount of money that is driving this. I mean, consulting firms will obviously tell you that you can do all these wonderful things if you're willing to spend, money with them.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, and I guess the hard is one of the things I see, being in business, that's a hard thing to decide is, you mentioned, it depends what problem you're trying to solve. Well, how quickly will we might not know we have a problem to solve? Meaning, for instance, they have all that AI generated video you can do, right? Well, do you take the time to put energy in doing that and coming up with, I guess marketing videos, right, that you could do maybe cheaper? How does a company know, I guess, whether or not they should start to venture down a path like that, I guess is what I'm saying, versus, hey, our marketing department's great right now. Why should we change? I guess that's what it is. How do we know that staying the same is the right choice, or changing or experimenting, right, with some of these new things?
Right. Well, I think a lot of the things that you really need to do in any company is, and I'm sure you advise this all the time, is to say what is worth doing in-house and what is worth farming out. So I think for something like marketing, you can say, well, what are your in-house capabilities and what is available outside? Now, for something like AI-generated video, I think for most companies, it makes no sense at all to try and figure out that technology by themselves. There's quite a learning curve. They're constantly, every day, there are new products coming out. So I think it'd be better to work with people who do this full time, who have the expertise and know the latest, and they can tell you what it's going to cost to do, what the quality of it's going to be, and then you can compare it to other technologies that you already have and are familiar with. So I think it's generally a good idea to look around and see what people who are expert at using the technology have come up with, and really show it or do it for you, or show you how to use those tools.
But any thoughts on how much at this point that companies should be exploring it, versus kind of a wait and see type of perspective?
I think absolutely you need to keep up with what is being offered, but I think you just need to be critical about, is this something that's really working already, or is this just something that people are extrapolating? So I think you could certainly wait to see whether people have already implemented it. You don't need to be at the absolute bleeding edge of this technology. It's evolving so fast, and the things that will work well and do work well will become available, and the costs will come down very rapidly. But I don't really think that any of these technologies are going to give a company such a tremendous edge, within weeks, that you're going to be missing out if you wait a little bit to actually see what works and what doesn't work, and let other people pay that price.
Hmm. Where do you see, business then in just 2 years? Because like you said, everything seems to be accelerating very quickly. So where do you kind of see things changing in the business landscape over the next 2 years?
So I think that ChatGPT, some of the hype is definitely going to tone down over the next 2 years, and as people figure out what it's good for and what it isn't good for, it's not going to some people are saying we're not going to have programmers in 5 years' time. I don't see that at all. There's one thing about writing a snippet of code, and there's another thing about architecting a system and thinking through and knowing what your customer requires, and knowing all the implications. So the technology we have now in large language models and ChatGPT is not capable of doing that at all, and I think that's true for many areas. I think one easy way to see it is it's very much a tool that humans can use to generate ideas, to maybe polish off a report or an email or something. It's excellent at generating ideas, but the human needs to be in the loop. I mean, constantly when I use ChatGPT, I find that there are errors that, sometimes very bad ones, sometimes they're very subtle. And so you really need to be very careful about how to use it. So bottom line is in 2 years' time, I think a lot of these people will get used to using these tools a lot more and get gains from them. But I don't think they're going to be replacing people wholesale at all.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I was just commenting to my husband yesterday, because I used AI to generate an avatar, and I said I wanted a bass player, and my husband plays bass, and my husband's like, it's a really weird guitar. It has 6 strings and whatever. And I said, yeah, it has, it's supposed to be a bass. He goes, yeah, but the head of the guitar is wrong. And I'm like, well, see, that's what you get when you're not the expert, right? So I don't know anything about bass guitars, and I just assumed whatever the AI generated was correct.
Right.
And so there's definitely a level of, like you said, you need to have healthy skepticism when you use it and kind of validate things. And I've found the same thing that you have. For me, it's a great starter of ideas. If I'm like, oh, I need to send out a message and I want it to include these things, it spits out a message for me, and then I go in and I edit it all, but it saves me time from having to start from scratch.
Absolutely, yes. And the mistakes that you're talking about, like bass guitar and so on, it will get better and better as more people use it and they train it, with additional data. But then you also have to say, well, how much commercial value is there? And there's one thing about it being a novelty, but there's another thing about saying, okay, does this really move the needle in terms of, creating value in the world? Does this kind of feed people? Does it reduce the cost of goods, or is it just kind of a nice to have?
Well, I can think of, the use cases in both the, legal and medical fields, where if you could load all the accurate data and all the accurate case studies, or like in legal, all the case law and things like that, that it could really expedite research. Again, you'd still have to have a professional come in and make sure that it's done said research. But, do you see it maybe revolutionizing things there?
Not anytime soon. And there's a good reason for that. In fact, I think it's sort of a replay of 10 years ago or 8 years ago. I can't quite remember, when IBM Watson was all the rage. And, they said it's going to replace, medical researchers and lawyers and all of that. And it clearly couldn't do that. It fell flat on its face. And now with ChatGPT and large language models, it's actually a lot more subtle because they sound so convincing in what they in what they produce, and that's a real trap. Because if you can feed in all of this information, medical information or legal information, and it comes up with plausible sounding arguments or conclusions, it's easy to fall into the trap of saying, well, this sounds right. And from a legal point of view, you could get yourself into such deep trouble, well, medical as well, because it'll be harder and harder to spot the mistakes. But there will be mistakes there, and the reason for that is this technology does not have the ability to think about its own thinking, to evaluate the process of how it came to a conclusion, which humans do. We can think about, called metacognition. We can think about our thinking. You can say we are aware of how carefully we researched something, or we thought something through, or that kind of thing. These large language models don't have that capability at all. They'll just spew out stuff that, based on the input that they have, that seems coherent, but it may be completely wrong. And it's as I say, it's hard to spot mistakes, and I think we've already seen that, where quite a number of large companies have said we cannot use this for anything critical. And so I don't see that changing, because the core technology just has those inherent limitations, that it generates stuff based on the knowledge that you have, and that knowledge is just cannot be well controlled. It's a black box. I mean, people providing this say, we don't actually know how this works. And, it just generates one word at a time, the next word, based on, all of these statistical information that it has. So there's no high level reasoning that really controls the process. And that, as I say, that's not likely to change. I don't see any technology in the wings to do that using statistical systems. Now, there is there's a different approach, but that is not what is being used.
Is the same type of, I guess, errors or that can happen with its data analysis? Like, I've heard a lot about, like, you can load a bunch of data in it and have number crunching and analysis done on it. Do you find the same type of risks there?
Yes, I the recently it showed how you can basically put a whole spreadsheet in, and it will produce a graph in that, but it can also create errors there that are, again, subtle, and it's tricky. I mean, it's a bit like giving this job to an intern, and then relying on it because it looks kind of right,
Right.
But it's a little worse than that, because it is so competent in so many cases that you tend to be lulled into this false sense of security, that
Yeah.
yes, I think I can rely on it when you can't. And I don't see that changing anytime soon. We really need a different technology, what DARPA called the third wave of AI, whereas the current statistical systems are the second wave of AI. We need the third wave of AI, something that's called cognitive AI, that really has this metacognition, that has the ability to fully reason about what it's doing and to learn as it goes along. So to be able to adapt. Now, those systems will ultimately not require a human in the loop, and will be more scrutable and reliable. They won't rely on massive amounts of data, so it'll be more the quality of the data rather than the quantity of the data.
What about, I guess, thinking a little bit of a shift and more into the arts? I think, there's the strikes right now in the Actors Guild, and I think a lot of that has to do with being, kind of apprehensive about how AI is going to impact their work. And obviously you can ask ChatGPT to write you a script, or write you a song, or write you,
Mm.
but uh, do you think there's going like that it'll ever learn enough that it'll actually be able to? It just seems like there would be so much nuance in art, like things that you couldn't teach a computer how to get what captures a person's heart or soul or something like
Mm.
that.
Well, I'm not an expert in the field by any stretch,
Mm.
but I mean, I think there are a number of factors are involved. First of all, I think the most successful, series and movies tend to follow a formula.
Mm-hmm.
There isn't actually that much innovation, and I think the same is true with music to a large extent. You have a few people that basically know how to get the right sound, um, and the right lyrics, and and whatever. So there seems to be less innovation actually, in terms of really breakthrough. Now that actually helps AI, because you can then capture that formula and just create more of the same. And I think it'll actually be quite successful in generating successful movies and series. So I think there is a real threat to the industry as far as employment is concerned. And it doesn't help when the studios now have to decide, well, we have people on strike. We don't seem to be able to reach agreement, and I'm not in a position to say who should give or who shouldn't give. But the bottom line is we can't reach agreement. But hey, we can use AI and we can keep making money. It's going to be very tempting, and it's happened in other industries as well, where you struggle with unions or with getting enough staff, and basically the obvious answer is automation. I mean, we're seeing that the area that I work in is in the call center space. Now, in the call center space, it's not unions, and it's really just it's very, very hard to get enough people to work and to want to work in call centers and to keep working. The turnover is horrific in there. I mean, I think the average the average is like 6 weeks. A lot of people will sign up for it, try it for a week or two, and I'm out of here. I can't stand this.
Right.
So call centers have a really, really hard time to find people, to train them, and to keep them. Now, as we were talking earlier, unfortunately, most companies choose not to put enough effort into getting the right technology, which could, in fact, if very effectively replace human operators and automate that. I mean, for example, one of our big customers is 1-800-Flowers, and they pride themselves very much in providing a very high quality service to their customers. And the conversational AI we provide for them makes it very easy for people to go to a live operator. And yet, in the things we've automated, 90% of the chats are handled through automation, because it gets things done. People want to get something done. They want to order something, want to change an order, or whatever it might be, find out about it. And if it's done successfully, if the system can do it very quickly and effectively, then that's what people prefer. I mean, you don't want to even, if it's busy like Mother's Day, of course, how long are you going to wait on the phone to talk to somebody? But if you can talk to an AI immediately, 24/7, it has the information at its fingertips, remembers you if you called in before, that's much better service than most human operators can provide. Now, there's still that level, there's still those functions that do require a human touch, where, there's sort of common sense knowledge, or the degree of difficulty, or somebody who just absolutely cannot stand talking to a computer. Absolutely. But then those are also the more satisfying jobs in a call center, when you're dealing with more challenging issues rather than the more routine ones.
I read an article recently I can't remember if it was in the Wall Street Journal or where, but it was basically saying, it was talking about human touch points and how, um, how we're moving more and more away from human touch points, but through,
Mhm.
like the checkout stands, or, not using tellers at a bank. And, call center would be a great example. And that this was really, I didn't really agree with the article, but it's really
Mhm.
driven by the ultra rich who don't want human touch points, was what the article was, and that the rest of us really do. And I'm like, well, I'm not ultra rich, and I don't want those
Mhm.
touch. I'd rather have other human touch points, not the ones that are very transactional. So I kind of was put out with that, but I'm
Yeah,
just
I totally agree. And in fact, the younger generation is very much wants to just do stuff on their phone. They don't want to go to the bank at all. They
right.
do online banking. They've never been to a brick and mortar bank. They don't want to go there. And even older people are getting used to it and say, hey, I can just order stuff on Amazon. It's just so much easier than actually going to a store for routine stuff. So
Huh.
I would not agree. Yes, as you say, you really would want the human touch with social interactions, and I mean that has its own challenges, especially after COVID. And people
Yeah.
not getting out enough.
Yeah, you definitely want it on things that are complicated, like, hey, my underage daughter, I want her to travel from the US to Australia, and I want to talk through with somebody
Mhm, mhm.
on her own what that might look like, something like that, versus, yeah, being able to just order my groceries through an app and have them delivered. But, one of the things it was talking about, and this is where I, was a little, thought it was an interesting point, is that sometimes, obviously, this level of automation and this level of technology use can put elderly at a disadvantage, and as well as people who might have disabilities, like uh, blindness or something like that, I think is what it was referring to with online banking or something. But do you see that will make things simple enough that we'll be able to cater to those who maybe just aren't, I guess, technology natives?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, let's take the case of somebody being blind. If they can call on the phone and do the interaction, through voice channel, that actually helps. I mean, they can't go out and go to the bank and sit down and
Mm.
talk to somebody. So making that available, making that more available, and more capable, will help them. And I think people are just getting more used to it, and even the older generation. And of course, it doesn't preclude uh, people still going to a store and going to a bank. So I think it's just overall it's a win. But as I say, you really need to have good technology. And this is where companies are really, really falling down. I mean, there are just so many awful chatbots and call automation when you call in IVR, interactive voice response, um, that really shouldn't be that terrible. I mean, I'll give you two examples here that really frustrate me being in the industry, because I talk to potential customers and they always tell me, we pride ourselves in our customer service, and is your technology going to be good enough, and all of that. And then you try their system. So the first thing that happens, please listen carefully to the menu options, because our
Following
options have
options.
recently changed. Your business is very important to us. And so, like the first thing they do, they aggravate you by wasting 30 seconds or 60 seconds of your time to do that. Then you get through to somebody after you've verified yourself, you've given your account number, your whatever, you've
I
gone
know where
jumped
you're
through the hoops.
going.
You get through to a person, you start all over again,
Yeah.
and these things are totally unnecessary.
Mm.
It's just really poor decision making by companies and company executives, that if the CEO ever used the system, you would hope he'd have some heads roll and say, we've got to change this, we've got to fix this, but they don't. They're just, and it's really frustrating. That's not even talking about having a chatbot with a brain, which is, the higher level of technology that you can offer if you go beyond the old flowchart type of approach that, most systems have. So yes, they're definitely, companies should be, held accountable to these awful systems that they are offering.
Oh, that one actually irritates me so much. Sorry, your information didn't come through on the automated whatever.
Yeah. And then we have to transfer
Yeah.
we have to transfer you to another department.
Yeah.
And you go into another queue where you hold, and then you start all over again, having to explain why you're calling and who you are. Yes, I know. Yeah. Totally unnecessary. And, and as I say, that's purely poor decision making at the corporate level.
But do you see in the future, let's say, with all of these things, we get them more refined and being able to solve more problems. Do you always see, though, that there will be an element of, needing tellers or needing call center agents so that there is that somebody, if, one, if you prefer, or two, if you're getting so frustrated that you can actually have
to talk to. Yes, absolutely. I mean, we're going to have this for a long time, but as I say, if that can be the exception rather than the rule, then hopefully you will have more career-minded people who take pride in the job, who have it as a career, because they are handling more challenging situations and conversations, where somebody wants to talk to a person, not that they have to talk to a person because the automated system didn't cut it.
Right.
Right. I mean, that also makes it frustrating. I mean, we've all had this. You try an automated system, it doesn't work. So now you have to talk to a human. So first of all, you wait. You have to identify yourself again. You've just wasted a bunch of time with the automated system. And now you talk to a human. Now, what frame of mind are you in? That's not going to make the operator's job any more pleasant, no. Because you're already annoyed when you start talking to them. But if it's the other way around, if the automated system can do the job for those people who want to use it, and where people don't want to use it, they can then talk to an operator. Again, for the systems, the way we implement them, if our automated system gets you there 80% of the way, but there's something more subtle, you want to find out more about, what kind of plant will work in a particular yard or with shade or whatever, and you want to talk to an expert. So you can do 80% of the interaction with an automated system. You then transfer to an operator. They get a summarized transcript of exactly what's going on, why it was being transferred, what you've already covered with them. And, you don't have to repeat yourself. That makes for a very pleasant interaction and effective interaction.
No, it makes sense. Well, Peter, I think we're kind of reaching time. So I would love to hear what 3 things you'd like to leave top of mind with folks.
So what I'm very excited about is really the future of AI, not the current systems that we have with ChatGPT because of the problems and limitations that we have, but what we call AGI. Actually, as it turned out, I coined the term artificial general intelligence in 2002 together with 2 other people. So it's kind of nice to see that term is now caught on. But that is to have systems that really can think, learn, and reason the way humans do, that, remember what you say, use context, and can think. And I'm looking forward to the day where we have what we call a personal assistant. And it really should be called a personal assistant. I explain why. So the first personal is that you own it. It's yours. It serves your agenda. not some mega corporation. So it's not Siri belonging to Apple or Alexa, it serves your agenda. So that's the first personal, it's yours. The second personal, it's hyper personalized to you. It learns all about you, your preferences, who the people are that you interact with and what basis you interact, what you want, and things like that. So it really gets to know you over time. That's the second personal. And the third personal is the issue of privacy, that it will only share things with what you want them to share. So your colleagues at work, you may share certain things, that your bank other things, your spouse different things, so that you have full control of what it shares with whom. And that kind of personal assistant can then also deal with the crappy automation that's out there. So it can then go on, online and have that conversation, or wait for half an hour to get through to a human and interact with that. So that's what we're working on. That's what I'm very excited about, and that's what I'm looking forward to having, is our intelligent personal assistants.
No, that's really fascinating. Well, how can folks learn more about what you do or get in contact with you?
Well, it's very easy. Our company is Aigo.ai, AIGO.ai. And there are really links on the website there. Also, you can contact me directly. I'm on LinkedIn and Twitter and Facebook, or just peter@aigo.ai. I've also written quite a number of articles that are on medium.com. So again, just my name, Peter Voss, Medium, about free will, about morality, about AI, about the future, and life extension, and all sorts of things that interest me.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for your time today.
Well, thank you for having me. This was interesting.
Yeah. And to our audience, until next time, keep your organizations healthy.